Hey Scott, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you both?
Good. Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Good, Scott. What's happening with your lighting there? That's an interesting choice of lighting. You're going with the green side light. I almost did that.
Yeah, I'm trying to mask the terrible attic space that I have as my office with some neon lights. That's what you do, and then you just chuck neon lights at terrible spaces.
Richard's
Yes.
got back with Philips Hue lights, so he's actually genuinely excited by your setup there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this
me
a week ago. It looked horrific. This room where my office is, it looks like when I did Zoom in the first, during the pandemic and stuff, it looked like I was in a bunker somewhere, kidnapped by someone because it was so dark and disgusting. Never mind. Guys, congratulations on Outlander again. Continued success of Outlander. Maybe I'll start with you, Sophie. Have you got your head around over the years that it's continued just how massive this show is? I mean, I've just before then looking on YouTube at stuff that you guys have done and interviews and stuff, and just the fan base is just insane.
Yeah, it's funny. When I got cast, obviously it was quite a secret for a while. One of the producers pulled me aside and he said, look, this is a very specific fan base. They're very passionate. It's amazing, but also you might be eaten alive. We just want to warn you. Obviously with my casting release going out, I look nothing like Brianna, I'm not American, and all these things that were working against me. And he was like, but you are Brianna, and when they see it, all shall be well. And so I think just since then, we did have a bit of pre-warning. Yes, it catches you off guard at times, but it's actually just been incredible how supportive the fandom are, and the fact that we have had such a long hiatus and they've still stuck with the show, the fact that we're going into season 7 and season 6 is airing and the fans are just as passionate as they were 6-7 years ago is quite a feat, because it's very rare. So although we were warned, we weren't totally prepared, and it takes your breath away every day. Actually, it's wonderful.
Yeah, Richard, how have you found the whole process of not just being in the show, but the kind of fan base? Because, like Sophie said, you've been on hiatus for a while for obvious reasons, and people are still so desperate to the fact that they wanted to know about season 7 before they'd even seen season 6.
They do that. They do that. Like if something's announced or a new season's announced, they go, "Oh, that's great! Oh, I hope they now announce season 8." And you're like, "Wait, what? We've only just started filming season 6. Season 7's been announced, and you want 8?" It's like, they like to leap ahead. They like to know. They like that security that it's there. But I mean, what an incredible fan base it is, though. I think it's quite a unique one, and they've always been so very loyal and so very passionate, and they have stuck around because we were in hiatus for, what was it, 2 years? It's between a year and a half and 2 years. It's a long time to expect anyone to wait on a show and to wait on the return of a show. A lot of shows would, their followers, their fans would lose interest over that time for sure, and that did happen, but it didn't happen to us, which we're all very, grateful and thankful for. But I think that is just testament to them, the fans, and they are ever present. I mean, you start to get to really know them and interact with them, and they're very opinionated and very focal. So you always kind of have your finger on the pulse in terms of where they're at, what they expect, what they're looking forward to.
I'll find out where we're shooting before we even know where we're going.
Yeah.
We turn up to set and they're all there, or they tell us that a season's happening or a screening's happening or something, and we're like, oh, cool.
If you need to know what's going on with your character, just ask the fans. Just go, where's my character at? What are they doing? Where are they going? They'll help you out. They'll tell you. They'll remind you of what your character's supposed to be doing. So that they are on it. They are absolutely on it. It's quite a thing to be part of.
Yeah, and maybe Sophie, I'll chuck this question to you first again, just so it's a bit easier. But I mean, you very rarely you get to play so many characters in a career, but very few people get to play a character over the space of 5, 6, 7 years. What are the kind of challenges to doing that? Because you want to keep things fresh, and people already know where the source material and everything else. So for you as an actor, how have you found the fact that they've managed to keep it fresh and they've kept you kind of, in the dark, so that there's some surprises for you down the line?
Well, that's where I think we're very lucky with the show, in that because it is about time travel, and I've had the luxury of playing Brianna from 16 to 26 with the flashbacks and everything else. And because of the time travel, I've managed to work with most of the people on the show, whereas a lot of the storylines on the show are quite isolated. So you only get to integrate with certain actors. I've had the Claires, the Franks and whatever, and the Marie Doyles and all of that. So it's been really fun for me in that way. And also Brianna's, I feel like she takes on other people's emotions quite a lot, like an actor kind of does. So she's almost a different version of herself depending on who she's with. And is in that way, I've been lucky in that it almost is like doing mini movies, because her character progresses and changes so much, and her circumstances change so much, and the decade and century that she's in changes so much that it always feels fresh anyway. So that's just credit to Diana's books, and to, like you said, how the writers keep things fresh and throw in these little bits that weren't in the books, just to keep it all new. So it hasn't felt like just being in one thing for 7 years, because every season's so different, and Brianna's always so different from ep to ep or season to season.
Yeah. And Richard, what about Roger? Roger has a interesting trajectory over the seasons. How have you enjoyed playing him and all of the facets of him throughout the years that you've done this?
Yeah, I mean, it's it is quite a long time, and having that opportunity to play your character for such a long time comes with it a variety of advantages. Becomes easier to play. You've created that foundation, that character that you've developed becomes a little bit more. You're more in tune with that character. You know what that character is going to think and feel in certain situations. But with shooting over such a long period of time, over years, over several years, we could. By the time Outlander finishes, we could have been on it for a decade. I mean, that's not far from a possibility. So with that, you need to have a certain focus. You need to have a certain commitment to it. It's easy to get complacent. It's easy to kind of drop the ball. So it's just important to keep yourself focused on what it is you're doing, where your character is, and where you are as an actor. So it takes a lot of kind of commitment and dedication on the actor's part, I think, to not lose sight of it and just kind of let it become a sort of, to have a complacent approach to it. But in saying that, it is kept changes that he goes through as a man, as a person, as a husband. I think is one of the things that really gripped me about the book, and one of the things that I was most excited about playing on the show was just that chaotic, crazy trajectory that the poor man has. But, it's all for love, so that makes everything okay. But yeah, it's I think those character arcs, those character journeys are very well written. She throws in some pretty crazy scenarios for these characters to go through, some real turmoil, some real stressful events. So that obviously keeps it very alive for you. It never feels very sort of pedestrian or mundane playing these characters. So that does help a lot.
Yeah, and you guys go through such a cavalcade of like decades and centuries and everything else. Is there it sounds like such a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a decade where, if you were able to pick a place to see those characters in, do you have a decade in mind where you'd be like, I'd quite like to see them in this place, for example? Like for me, as a child of the 80s, I'd love to go back to the 80s.
I was just going to say the 80s. I feel like Brianna and Roger are so the 80s. They're just like weird and cool and geeky, and like I just think it would just be a great time. It's like it's almost like just the free living era where everyone just lets any expectations go and just kind of takes everything day by day. I think after being in the 1700s, everything's so oppressed. The 80s just feels so free and breezy, and I don't know. I could just imagine them running around like Sandy and Danny. I want to be able to. I'm very excited.
Greece is in the 70s, you numpty. I think I agree. The 80s would be a great decade for Roger and Bree. I think I wouldn't mind seeing them at a rave in the 90s either. Roger and Bree just partying.
Imagine Roger at a rave. He'd be explaining the Latin word for each bloody cocktail.
Yeah, I think to educate people on the origins of a rave and what it meant to the ancient Romans.
Yeah. Also, I think if you went for the only reason I say the 80s as well for you guys is I feel like there could be you could have Doc Brown or Marty McFly with their time machine, kind of have a little crossover. It's all about these connected universes these days. So let's have a time travel first. Why not?
I feel Go Back to the Future for Back to the Future.
Go Back to the Future for Back to the Future. Yeah, I just imagine Doc and Marty in the 1600s and you guys in the 80s. That would be hilarious. Guys, my time is up. Thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure talking to you, and good luck with 6 and 7 when they arrive.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,